Well, welcome back everybody to Hot Rod Guy Garage. This is going to be kind of a two-piece episode. Uh, it's not only going to cover the how to make your Geo Metro faster series, but it's also going to go into one of my Geo Metro how-to videos. So basically today, I just recently swapped Project Freetro to a manual transmission. Well, I used the stock shifter. Uh, my other aftermarket shifter finally came in, so I'm going to flip the camera around and now we're going to go through the install process of it. And alright guys, as you can see, Project Freetro, I do have it jacked up. But this is the shifter we're going to install today. This is a Honda Civic short throw aluminum shifter. Now, I will warn you, sometimes I have had these break off up here at the threads, but I usually just tap them down and you can put another knob on it. This shifter is like $10 off eBay, depending on how fancy you get. Now, this pivot ball is the same as the Geo Metro pivot ball, and the shifter is approximately the same length. So, basically, I'm just going to kind of zoom in on what this is. It says 88 through 2000, and it says it's chrome and weighs 11 ounces, so it's like super light. So, basically, you're going to jack your car up, and once you get in here, you're going to remove your console that goes around your shifter. This one's already removed. So basically, guys, this has got some screws that hold it in along the sides, and it comes right up on out. You will have to remove your shifter knob and your boot. But once you get to this point, it gets pretty easy from there, and we'll go into that here in just a moment. So basically, at this point, you're going to get under the car, and ignore some of the ugliness up here. I have modified the factory shifter, and I'm just not real happy with it. But basically, guys, you have a 14mm on this side and a 12mm nut on the other side. And you're just going to take a wrench and you're going to remove that stuff. So, not a big deal. It, just depending on how tight that you installed it the last time, if you did, it's not very fun. But one thing you got to keep in mind, sometimes with a short throw shifter, you may have some exhaust clearance issues. But basically, you're going to remove your pivot bolt, the washer, and your nut. Just like that. Your shifter's going to come down, and then it's going to be floppy. The main advantage to a short throw shifter, you're going to get rid of these bushings if they're wore out. These are actually fairly tight. And you will have a lower rubber boot on a factory application right here. This boot was garbage, so it has been discarded, and it's not ideal to do it that way. But this car is not technically a daily driver, even though I do drive it daily. I do not know about the availability of that boot. So from now, we go up to the top side. And once you're on the inside, you get all your console stuff removed. You'll take a pair of snap ring pliers, which this is just a cheap set that I've had for a long time. And you have a snap ring up here in the top of the shifter. What you'll do, you'll grab that snap ring, and once you get it out, your shifter has a washer and a bushing and stuff up in here. And basically, guys, if everything goes well and you're not welding the big old boogery thing on the bottom of your shifter, it will generally just come right out. But in some cases, you may have to take the bushings off the bottom, out of the bottom pivot, before the shifter come out. So I'm going to hop back down there and do that, and then I'll pop this thing out and I'll be back. But basically, guys, when you get it apart, this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to have a lower bushing, an upper bushing, a spacer, and your snap ring. So basically what you're doing, you're by going to the short throw shifter. You have bearings in the aftermarket shifter. These don't have no side-to-side play, whereas your factory bushings like these may be wore out. Another thing that you gain, and I know it's going to be kind of hard to see because I have fixed this shifter, and I actually made it an even shorter throw than what the Honda shifter is. But your factory shifter pivot sits about right here, and the longer arm of this is what shortens the throw. The longer it is here, the shorter the throw. Depending on clearance, I mean, you could even go down to here and your gears would probably be that far apart. But that's not what this is about. This is basically a repair for me, just for my transmission swap, because I didn't want to leave this in there. That was something I had to do in the driveway on my back. So it basically works the same way for replacing a factory shifter. And before you get all excited, this just bolts right in. It does, but it doesn't, all in the same. As you can see, your stock cross bolt will not go through the bearing. And that is something we'll address later in this video. But for now, I'm going to take our shifter and I'm going to get it prepared here. I'm going to get our bushings back on it and stuff. And maybe throw them in the floor or whatever I need to do. But basically, you lower a bushing, it's got a split in it. And you're going to just open that split up ever so slightly to get around the bottom pivot ball here. And while your upper one does have a split also, you do not have to stretch it to get it over. So basically what I do, I'll just clean these up real well. And I will use a silicone-based lube on them. But basically when it goes back together, guys, this is what your pivot looks like. And when you shift gears, that's what it's sliding in, is these two little plastic bushings. Just kind of like that. So I'm going to get this back in the car. Our installation will be reverse of removal. And I'll bring y'all along for the ride to put it back together. But I'm going to go grab the lube to lube this ball up, and we'll get it stuck back in there. And alright guys, what I used for the lube here, I used some synthetic brake lube just on that. Basically, your shifter's just going to go back in like this. Now, I did have to grind the bottom of the cup a little bit for the pivot on the bottom to pass through, and I just made it where it was kind of a friction fit through. You may or may not have to do that depending on your shifter and the tolerances that it was machined to on the bottom side. So at this point, we're ready for our shim and our clip, and I'm going to get this thing back reinstalled. So your shim's going to go in there like that, and then your C-clip goes back in here. Back down in its retaining groove. So when you get it installed, you want to make sure if you have any up and down play, which I do have a little, I'm going to see if I can't find another washer to put under here and see if I can't shim that just a little bit tighter. Because I'm trying to eliminate all the play in mine, and as you can see, we don't have much. If you concentrate, you can probably hear it in the video. But basically, guys, that's going to give you a shorter transmission throw, and I'll be right back. And alright guys, now for the kind of the tricky part here. You're going to want to find a bolt that will pass through your bushing up here fairly snug, okay? Now, the shifter does come with these little brass bushings that you more than likely will have to use. But as you would also notice, our hole's bigger on this side, and that's where our issue will kind of come in when we Try to get the shifter in a position where I'm happy. And as you can see, we got quite a bit of play here, right? And that's where these bushings are going to come into play. So the easiest way I found to do it is just kind of get your bolt somewhat started in the hole, and then you can feed it through. Well, you still got this big old giant hole on this side, and you're like, oh, the bushing will take that up, and you would be correct there. The bushing will take that up. You can also, this nut I've got here, now you got to remember I worked on German cars for a few years, and this is a BMW valve cover nut, and they work pretty well for being, they're darn near the same size as the hole. So your bolt is just still your basic 6x1.0, but our nut is what's special here. Now you don't have to use a BMW valve cover bolt, but that's what I used in this case. So now I got it bolted up, and we'll go back up top, and we'll see how much shorter our throw is. Alright guys, but basically your stock shift knob's not going to work. It's just going to fall right back down on there, and that's not going to be good for any kind of performance stuff. So make sure you order a Honda shift knob too. But first, second, you can see how tight the shift throw is, and we're not all sloppy like we would be with a factory shifter. It's much tighter. So while it don't directly add power, it could potentially make your car faster by having a more shorter, more positive shift. And alright guys, basically once you get your shifter in like that, you can put your console and stuff back on there. As you can see, I used a vintage T-handle from the 70s. It fit the Civic shifter just fine. So that's what I'm going to run with on mine. I like the T-handle. Gives me a little more of a positive grip. So basically guys, it's a real simple install. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and a floor jack and some simple hand tools usually. So, you know, nice little upgrade for a stock car or a modified one. So basically guys, like I've said several times in the video, it's not going to make a performance upgrade. It will, however, make a performance feel upgrade to the shifter and to your transmission. Keep in mind the stops are internal on these transmissions, and it's not on the shifter, and nobody makes a shifter with a positive stop. So when you're shanking gears, you need to not really shank them all that hard. So I don't know guys, I was kind of tinkering around. I've been kind of messing with it. I drove it again today to put some miles on the clutch. So it just, you know, I'm just tinkering around. I'm waiting on some parts for a car I get here at the shop. So in between, I figured I would just shoot a video of me installing the shifter, since I had it, and maybe some people are curious. But the Honda Civic shifters do fit with very small, slight mods. Just keep that in mind, that quality control with overseas stuff is not the best, and you may have to modify something that I didn't, or you may not have to modify anything at all that I did. So basically guys, you know, enjoy your car. Mod it the way you want to, and if you got big dreams and you want to go fast, there's nobody holding you back but yourself. Now, a lot of people frown upon this kind of stuff, but that's the point of this series. Just try to get the information out there. So until the next one guys, we'll see you then, and make sure you hit that like button, comment down below if there's anything you want to say, and most importantly, subscribe. It helps support the channel. It helps me out. It helps the channel grow and gets this information out to more people that may not necessarily see it. So we'll see you at the next video.